So older voters, maybe that's why Vice President did a little bit better with senior citizens. Look, our background is doing lots of earned media through the course of our careers. Does it help in where we stand now? If you're a candidate with a limited amount of time to get your voice out there and define yourself, you kind of have to do everything.
And she hit the nail on a motherfucking head with that one. She said our background isn't really podcasts, it's really mainstream media, the whole, CNN, blah, blah type run. Yeah, that's the problem. So when it comes to the Democratic Party's failure to win, like majorly failure, they must have failed in every single way. Like, you bring up a reason why, 9 times out of 10, you're correct. It's not just one way or this way or only that way. It's plenty of ways. But what's most intriguing is this cast right here, the people that were actually in charge of talking to Harris and kind of making these moves with her. Those are the people I want to hear from. And if you clicked on this video, you're one of the individuals that actually cares about politics and not just every 4 years just kind of picking your head up saying, hey, what's going on? You know what I'm saying? Like, this is right here. And I watched this once, and it's really telling on where they were with their thinking. You know what I'm saying? I picked out 3 key moments. Once again, go to Pod Save America if you want to watch this entire thing. It's an hour and 35 minutes long. I played like 4 League of Legends games while listening to this. This is a long conversation here. But 3 most kind of, at least in my opinion, important parts where they actually spoke about things that we ourselves felt that they dropped the ball on. And hearing their answers is kind of interesting, so let's go ahead and take a listen to see if they learned anything or if they just going to blame progressive. So let's go ahead and take a listen.
We, of course, got that everywhere we went. And we knew what the data was. We knew we had to show her as her own person and point to the future and not try to rehash the past. But she also felt that she was part of the administration. And unless we said something like, well, I would have handled the border completely differently, we were never going to satisfy anybody. So we did talk about things like
okay, I'm sorry, pausing it, but once again, this is my show. This is kind of how I do things. I want to say, I really do believe that she's wrong on that. If she would have said, hey, look, if I was behind the wheel, okay, I'm vice president, so if anything, I'm sitting in the passenger seat. And when you're sitting in the passenger seat, you can't drive the car, obviously. But once I take the wheel, or if I could have had a chance to take the wheel in 2020, I would have done things differently. Honestly, if she would have came out strong like that, it would have made me happy. You know what I'm saying? Like, people didn't like Biden, not only because he was old, but they felt like the economy and things weren't working in their way, in their favor. And if people don't understand politics or how the economy really works, because it's different functions that make the economy, they just blame the president. Hey, I don't really know, don't really care. That guy's in charge. It has to be his fault. That's how simple people look at the situation. So in my opinion, okay, maybe, I'm in their position, but be as far away as possible from Biden. I mean, that's just kind of simple to me. People are blaming him, like verbally, like it's not a secret. So kind of just, you don't want to throw him under the bus, but just gently roll him under the bus. You know what I'm saying? Like, you don't have to do it in a rude way, but just do it. So I think she's kind of wrong on that.
A different generation. Most of her career is from outside of Washington, not inside Washington. So she knows a lot of the best ideas are from across the country. Her career has been about reaching across the aisle, finding common sense ways to get things done. It's not been based in ideological politics. All of these things, we were trying to tell a story and give the impression that she was different without pointing to a specific issue.
Can I ask this, why not a specific issue? Is it something she was unwilling to do? You worried it would feel disingenuous, or?
Because she felt like she was part of the administration. So why should she look back and cherry pick some things that she would have done differently when she was part of it? And she had tremendous loyalty to President Biden. And, if we had said...
All right. Hold on. Time out. Okay. Like I said before, you can have your loyalty, which is kind of a weird word, but you can respect Joe Biden if you're the vice president. I get that. I understand. You don't want to make him look bad, because then that can have some sort of blowback on you. Like, hey, that was your boss. Everyone has to take essentially the blame if the ship goes down. Okay, I get that. But you can do that in a respectful way. And I said this plenty of times. You can easily say something along to the effects of, Joe Biden, he did what he needed to do. He was a great guy, came up with great policies. He reached across the aisle. He was a great leader, and I will never take anything from that. But what I'm going to do when I get into that White House, when I become the president of this beautiful nation, I am going to build on top of what Joe Biden did, and I'm going to continue to, continue to drop prices, continue to knock down inflation, continue to bring back beautiful jobs into this wonderful nation, to make sure that small businesses can thrive and make, millions of dollars. I don't know, anything, something. Immigration, I'm going to make sure that, the criminals who are here illegally leave this country, fix our asylum seeking processes to where we have more judges and X, Y, and Z. You can do that easily without throwing Joe Biden under the bus, or at least not throwing. We want to slowly slide him under there gently, because he's old and fragile. So once again, I'm pretty sure she's an amazing person. You know what I'm saying? She's probably highly qualified for her position. But that was a no-no. That, to me, is what turned people off from Harris. Oh, you're like Joe Biden? You mean that guy who we're blaming everything on? You're like him. Okay. I ain't voting for you. So, I don't know. Maybe.
To President Biden. And, if we had said, just imagine this. You've been on plenty of campaigns. Imagine if we said, well, we would have taken this approach on the border. Imagine the round of stories coming out after that of people saying, well, she never said that in a meeting, or what meeting when she said this, or I remember when she did that. And it wasn't going to give us what we needed, because it wouldn't be a clean break. It would be, days upon days in a limited time window that we had of dealing of who, what, when, where. So the best we could do, and the most that she felt comfortable with, was saying, look, vice presidents never break with their presidents. The only time in recent memories when Pence broke with Trump after Trump stormed the Capitol. So Biden's not.
They call that the murder exemption. If the president tries to murder you, you can break. Yes.
So, but once again, I get what she's saying, and once again, I'm just on the outside looking in. I don't know really the ins and outs, as well as she probably does, but you got to understand your loyalty, which, like I said before, is a weird word to use, for the president. Your loyalty should be with the American people. That simple. I don't really care. I don't think people really care if, why didn't she say that in the meeting? Hey, there was people in meetings with Trump when they were like, hey, this dude has, Hitler, type of vibes going on in this room. No one cared about that. No one's like, oh my God, he said that in the media. Like, no one cares about that. So if Harris would have said, I would have did X, Y, and Z extremely different, nobody cares about what was said in the meeting, blah, blah. No, only mainstream media would have made a big deal about that. But regular folks would have been like, oh, you're different. That's what I want. I want someone different, someone new to get into that office. No one really cares about the details. Only people like me, like who will really read articles and read, podcasts talking about, what happened for hours. But the regular folks don't really care about that. So once again, I really felt like she dropped the ball on that one. All right, let's go to 2511. It's just a few minutes later. Just a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I think, it's important to put everything into context. We've very well established the time frame. And it's honestly a lot shorter than 107 days, but we had 3 core objectives to the paid media. It was to define the vice president. It was to defend her on incoming attacks, and a lot of these attacks have been baked in for the past 3.5 years. While she was the vice president, they were attacking her. She was at negative 20 something on immigration. We got that down to negative 10. Trump had a positive 22-point advantage on the economy. We got that down to 7. And we had to respond to those things. And when you sort of looked at the core issues, aside from the attacks, like trans issues are just at the bottom for voters. The economy, inflation, crime, immigration are the top issues. They were also some of the issues that she was getting attacked on. And to the element of sort of defining her and doing it in a way that sort of fit within what you're trying to do, there's a direct approach that you can take to anything, and then there is an approach that you can take that accomplishes 2 of the 3 objectives. A lot of the stuff that we did, such as talking about her prosecutorial background, and then saying that she went after transnational gangs, cartels, it was to push back pseudolly on the immigration attacks that were coming at her, as well as credentialing her background on things that were absent and standalone of the Biden administration. We did a lot of stuff about her record as AG, her record as a prosecutor, not as vice president, because it also allowed her to stand alone separate from the Biden administration. On the trans attack, obviously it was a very effective ad at the end. I ultimately don't believe that it was about the issue of trans. I think that it made her seem out of touch. And it was sort of a pseudo-economic ad underneath it, because he was saying you're going to pay for it with taxpayer money. And it was in her own words. And that's something. But we tested a ton of responses to this, direct responses. And none of them ever tested as well as basically her, talking about what she would do, to Jen's point, the future, the type of president that she would be. There were elements of it where we did try to say, and we put ads on television of her saying, you've seen all the negative attacks against me, and try to bottle it up, because I also think you have to think about the entire sentiment when you're running a paid campaign. And the trans ad, I think because of the content, a lot of people felt like it was much bigger than what it was. But to put that into context, Team Red, meaning Trump and all the super PACs that were spending on Trump's behalf, that was 7% of their total ads was on that issue.
Was that specific? I think it was 2 ads, right?
Yeah.
There was the original, and then there was the one with Charlemagne. Yep.
And it was all Trump. So Trump spent, 37% of his, 200 million on that ad, but Trump wasn't the only spender. We were getting hit across the board. And so you have to take into account what all the super PACs are doing and play off of that. And I think that's what Trump was doing. His super PACs were hitting us on the economy, immigration, and crime. And Trump even started hitting us on immigration. And I think the veracity of which we came out of the gate and responded to that, they weren't expecting that from us. And then they backed off of that. And at that point, they started going into it. And so it is easy to say, with the kind of resources that we raised, we should have been able to do everything. But that's not the case. You have to make decisions in the time frame that we were in this race. We had to choose.
So I understand what he's saying. And once again, I think a lot of people who are on the outside, like myself, looking in, like I heard some people say, well, 100-something days is plenty of time. You know what I'm saying? Blah, blah, blah. But, you got to understand, creating the ads, paying the people, finding the people, all this stuff, it takes time. So I do understand, you really have to be convinced in what you're going to do. When it comes to the trans ad that Trump put out, that a lot of people are saying, like, hey, really kind of move the needle just a little bit. And I seen the ad when you used Charlemagne the God, a black person. and then using Harris's own words in that, conversation she was having, talking about giving trans surgery to illegal immigrants. And then, Trump saying, Harris is for him, her, or whatever, and I'm for you. Like, that was a really well put together ad. But the problem is, it had no substance to it. It wasn't true by any means. From Charlemagne speaking out of context, of course, they clipped it to where it sounded like he was against her, and then using that conversation, which, if anyone just did a simple Google search, that piece of law was created way before Harris. It's not like Harris thought of that idea. Like, that was in place even when Trump was in office. So once again, out of context. And it's funny how, Trump said, Harris is for trans people, but I'm for you. So once again, he's causing a divide, pinning, us versus them. And at the same time saying, Trump is for trans people. Like, it's just so weird of an ad if you really take your time and break it down. It's like, who believed this? But once again, like we all been saying, misinformation and fear-mongering people is what drove people to the polls to vote for Trump. Nothing of substance, nothing of facts or data or anything with substance, with policies. He didn't have to run on that. So the Harris campaign was kind of in a weird situation because you kind of have to answer for that, which they really didn't do that. So now people are stuck with only the false information to work with. So it's a juggling act, but unfortunately, you have to do it both. You have to do it all when you want to beat Trump. So let's go ahead and go to 5959. We're going all the way to 59, not 100. Okay. And Jesus, I can't see. Okay, there we go.
Establishment, politics versus not politics.
When people,
why people would be, some folks would be feel more comfortable for their brand to have a convicted criminal on than the sitting vice president.
It was never a choice. Like, we'll have him, but we're not going to have you. Anybody that took him would take us. It was more some of the like Hot Ones, which is a great show. They didn't want to do any politics, so they weren't going to take us or him. So that was the issue. But we got on plenty of them. The bottom line is she was willing to do just about anything and have a conversation with anybody, regardless of where they sat.
And that was one of the other misconceptions when it comes to Harris not taking interviews, and she's just really being slow. She's scared, or she's not prepared, or whatever the case is. I think a lot of people fell for that. And I did that at first. I'm like, how come she's not doing no interviews? Like, you would think as soon as you figured that you were going to be running for president, you better be on a phone interview that night with somebody. You know what I'm saying? Like, but hearing that, and once again, if they're being honest and being true, she was trying to get out there, trying to go on Hot Ones. Can you imagine Harris on Hot Ones? That would have been amazing. You know what I'm saying? But I do respect, Hot Ones don't want to touch anything politics because that would be weird. I guess they could have done something to where, like, they're not even talking about politics. None of that. Just who you are and some fun, interesting things about yourself. I think they would have did a really good job at that. But once again, I think Harris, and I think they're going to hit on this here, even when she had those interviews, some of it wasn't perceived to be genuine. You know what I'm saying? Which a lot of people tacked on. So let's take a listen.
She did more traditional media than Trump did, as you point out, did basically none. Like literally none.
And got no shit for that.
Got shit from the interested party,
Yes.
The media that wasn't getting their interview. But voters don't give a shit.
Wait, Trump got shit for that? That's what I'm saying. We got shit. I'm saying
Oh,
Trump
we
got no
yes,
shit
we got tons
for
of shit
not-
that she
yeah,
wasn't doing
that's-
enough media.
He got no shit.
You know,
Yes.
not yeah.
Double
Like,
standard,
don't
double
even
standard.
get me going on that.
Do you, like,
and she was about to go off, which I want her to, you know what I'm saying, express that genuine anger, because that's what people want to know, is like how frustrated you were in that moment, so then we could be like, oh shit, it wasn't as easy as some might think. But it is a double standard that was going on. Like, Trump did how many actual media runs? What, one or twice with Fox News? You know what I'm saying? You know, we can have the argument of like, people are not really watching that or whatever the case is, but they still do get viewers. So you can't, you know, knock that. But Trump rarely did any. And all he was doing was going to people's podcasts to where he's not really talking politics. He's not really being challenged on policies or, you know, what crazy thing he said about Mexican people, or, you know, like, you know, I'm going to deport billions of people. Like, no one challenged him. Like, just some really softball type questions. When he went on Lex, not Lex Luthor, I forget his name, Lex, the guy, the really robotic guy who's really monotone like this. Okay. Nothing challenging whatsoever. Like, it was a walk in the park. But if he would have went on a CNN or, you know, a Times, the 60 Minutes. Yeah, the 60 Minutes. If he would have went on something like that, it would have been a little bit more challenging, which he didn't do. But everyone and their mama talked about how come Harris isn't here and how come Harris isn't there. And it's like, she was. And she did. She went on Fox News. Trump would never in a million years go on CNN. So once again, there you go.
like now that the campaign's over and you sort of identified who sort of the voters were who moved at the end, how do you feel about the utility of some of that earned media stuff?
Yeah.
Is it now feel a little bit like we're just sort of talking to our own people all the time?
Yeah. And not even in terms of who the targets were, the persuadable voters, which were largely young men, they're not watching the evening news. They're not watching cable. They definitely do not watch 60 Minutes. So older voters, you know, maybe that's why Vice President did a little bit better with senior citizens. You know, but, you know, look, our background is doing lots of earned media through the course of our careers. Does it help in where we stand now? You know, if you're a candidate with a limited amount of time to get your voice out there and define yourself, you kind of have to do everything.
And she hit the nail on a motherfucking head with that one. She said our background isn't really podcasts, it's really mainstream media, the whole, you know, CNN, blah, blah type run. Yeah, that's the problem. If you look at and I'm no genius, you know what I'm saying? I don't know anything that you guys can't look up. You know what I'm saying? Even I know people are not really tuned in to CNN. People are not really tuned in to MSNBC. No one knows what channel 60 Minutes is on. You know what I'm saying? Who is searching on YouTube 60 Minutes? You know what I'm saying? Unless they got Diddy on there, ain't nobody looking for that. You know what I'm saying? So you have to like kind of know that. You know what I'm saying? Like you can be smart as hell. You can have degrees in this and this. You could have worked with this president and this president. But if you don't understand, hey, I need to get Harris on a motherfucking podcast where millions of people are watching. Get her on Hassan Piker or get her on Destiny Stream. Somebody who's has millions of people watching. And just roll the dice, baby. Like what do you got to lose? You know, so that to me was the weirdest, like, admission. Like, we don't really have experience other than the traditional way. But this is 2024. Why don't we know that? Why didn't we try to, like, plan this even before Harris had to jump into the driver's seat? We should be already kind of understanding how the world is kind of turning to social media, TikTok, you know, Facebook, kind of Twitter, like people should kind of already know that. So it's just kind of weird hearing her say like, yeah, it kind of didn't know, so we just did what we know, what we're good at doing. Got you.
But did it screw with our narrative? Not just in getting shit for not doing enough earned media, but getting questions that we knew voters weren't going to care about. And, their myopic mindset on certain issues was not what the race was going to be about. So at a certain point, we had to decide, is this helping us or hurting us? And,
what did you decide? You can say it.
I would say, I mean, look, I am not media hater by any measure. And I think that, we women don't get far in life talking about double standards. So that's not the point. But I do think a narrative, 107 days, 2 weeks fucked up because of a hurricane, 2 weeks talking about how she didn't do interviews, which, she was doing plenty, but we were doing in our own way. We had to, be the nominee, had to find a running mate and do a rollout. I mean, there was all these things that you kind of want to factor in, but real people heard in some way that we were not going to have interviews, which was both not true and also so counter to any kind of standard that was put on Trump that I think that was a problem. And then on top of that, we would do an interview, and to Stephanie's point, the questions were small and processy and about like
dumb.
They were not informing a voter who was trying to listen to learn more or to understand. And I'm not here to say that the whole system was focused on us incorrectly. I'm just saying, like, again, of the things we need to explore as we move forward as a campaign and as a country, that does a disservice to voters. And, I think back and think we should have signaled more of our strategy early on about podcasts and who we were trying to reach. But we had a limited amount of time to reach the people we were trying to reach, and we were trying to go to them. But being up against a narrative that we weren't doing anything or we were afraid to have interviews is completely bullshit, and also took hold a little bit. And we just gave us another thing we had to fight back for that Trump never had to worry about.
So I definitely do understand that. We already kind of hit on that. But one thing I don't understand, or maybe I'm just thinking a little too hard on this, is when she says something along the lines of when we had these interviews, people were just asking irrelevant questions, stupid questions. I mean, yeah, but what the voters like myself wanted to hear, at least for myself, Gaza, the Palestinian people, increasing minimum wage, making sure people are earning a livable wage, which it sounds like a lot like Bernie Sanders, and healthcare. How is this going to be more affordable? And of course, the border. Do you understand what's wrong with the border? Or is there any issue? And how do you plan on fixing that? Those are kind of the things I wanted to hear. And, for whatever she did, she talked about her policies, but her policies had nothing to do, which were decent, but it didn't answer any of my questions. And you can go back to my videos, because I stated 3 or 4 videos, I want to know about a livable wage, because you can throw money at, for people to get a house, to start a business and, having kids. Those are good policies, but that means nothing if I'm working a job 40, 60 hours a week and I'm barely able to pay my rent. So ain't no way I'm thinking about getting a house. Ain't no way I'm thinking about starting a business. Ain't no way I'm thinking about having more kids if my job is shit. And all these other jobs know that, so they're not going to pay a challenging wage. They're just going to pay what everyone else is paying. That's what I wanted you to talk about, but she didn't. So she lost. So, my moral of this story is you don't need younger people, because I'm pretty sure these people are not too much older than me. Might be, I'm only 37. I'm not that old. But you need people that understand where your demographics, where they're at. They're not on CNN. I was one of the rare kids. What? watching CNN. You know, at 13, 14, I was watching CNN, Fox News. That's not really happening today. Kids probably don't even know where Fox News is other than YouTube, okay? You need to go where you want your demographics to be, obviously. And one, the policies. You can be on whatever podcast. You can be, being whatever person you want to be. You can have 2-3 years of preparation of this. None of that matters if your policies are not what the people want. And we for every 107 days she was running, people were saying, we want to know about healthcare, wages, and Gaza. What are you going to do? And high prices, obviously. What is your solution to that? And she did very little or no lip service to that whatsoever. So you mesh that up with Trump throwing out misinformation, you're going to lose the campaign, hands down. And that's what happened. So it's easy to kind of Monday morning quarterback this, but the most important thing is, are they going to learn? Not if they're in charge. It's like they did a pretty decent job kind of explaining, but it kind of lets us know what went wrong inside that campaign. So, but once again, if you guys agree or even disagree with anything I said in this video, let me know in the comments down below, or hit that Discord link so me and you and your friends, and I bring my friends too, so we can have that one-on-one talk. And like always, let's have that conversation.